Welcome to the 11 Warriors show for Thursday, January 25th, 2024. Jason Priestis, Chris Lauderback coming at you this beautiful winter morning. And Chris, we keep doing these shows. We started these not too long ago and been very blessed with lots of news to talk about. No different than the news that broke last night in Ann Arbor.
Yeah. Beyond the content gods delivering us content, it's actually typically been favorable content in Buckeye land. So I don't know, maybe we're a good luck charm or something. I'm not quite sure yet, but yeah, nice to wake up refreshed this morning. Hell, I think it's gonna be like 50 or something today, and we had some good news last night.
That's shorts weather, man, for like Ohioans. It's like this is warm enough. Like the Ohio dudes don't need any excuse to go to a store.
Well, we all know that one dude. It doesn't matter the temperature. They're they're rocking shorts. Probably got the big calves, and they're like destined to wear shorts 365.
Like flirting with tea times. Like I think I can get 9 in. It's Ohio man, the best of Ohio man. That's what we do up here. But yeah, news last night, man. Jim Harbaugh has finally taken an NFL job with the LA Chargers. Kind of funny because he was getting roasted yesterday earlier. Some stuff was going on the internet, like an NFL.com article from 2022 where he told Ward Manuel, the athletic director, this is a one-time deal. I'm not going to be doing this every year. Like he did it again in 23, did it again this year. It's like can't take the man at his word, but he's leaving the Big Ten, 9 seasons at Michigan. And man, I hate to say this, but he went out on top.
He did go out on top. I last I heard, he still had an extension on his desk. I mean, I was, some of the Michigan, hell, even writers, not just fans, are like, oh, it might be imminent. It's like, you've been saying that for like 6 months. But
the Michigan beats in shambles, man, with that extension story. They don't know what to do now.
But yeah, to your point, 9 seasons at UM, and it was, some ups and downs there for sure. But yeah, you can't. Well, maybe the NCAA can. I don't know, but you can't take away the fact that he went out on top.
They might try. Suspended twice last season, earned his 3rd straight W against Ohio State, capped it off with a perfect 15-0 season, knocked Alabama out in the semis, won his first national championship. I hate it, man. He's going out on top, and it's the first national champion to lose their coach before the start of next season since 1997 when Tom Osborne retired from Nebraska. Kind of similar, leaving for different things here. Heading back to the NFL, he coached the Niners from 11 to 14. He was really good there, man. Honestly, 44-19. That's a 690 win percentage, which is in the NFL. That's excellent. It's not like college. You just go beat up on Indiana and Rutgers and pad these wins, but 3 NFC championships in his 4 years, made it to Super Bowl 47, lost to his brother 34-31 in that one way back in 2013. But you touched on a minute ago, the NCAA investigation of Michigan remains. We'll have to see what comes out of that. They tend to not want to punish people that aren't responsible. So if they find out Harbaugh had an active role in the sign stealing scandal, the players will probably find they may vacate some wins, maybe let them keep their natty. I don't know what's going to shake out. Vacating wins to me is the funniest because they're going to have to crack 1,000 again. And then they're going to celebrate again. They'll put up social posts. So we should snapshot the 1,000th win one so we can compare the two, when the next one comes in a year or two, whatever happens. If they do that, we'll have to see. But huge news. I mean, some of us, kind of thought this was coming, thought it might be coming last year, 2022 as well. Obviously, he has a lot more leverage this year with the outstanding season he had and what he's done to the program, which, don't like the guy, don't like the program, but, just being fair, he's built a really, really good program up there.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. And you said NCAA investigation. You left an S off there, right? I think it's investigations. So we'll have to see where those go. But yeah, I mean, like you said, you can take some stuff away from them for sure because of some of those investigations, and we'll see what shakes out. But look, at the end of the day, we saw them on the field, and, it can be tough to swallow all day long. But that run they went on at the end of the season, if nothing else, when nobody thought they were, nobody had a reason to believe they were cheating, they were playing some damn good football. So, I reluctantly will tip my cap to him in that regard.
Yeah, made Michael Penix look like a 4th rounder when no one else had all season. Yeah. So got to give it up. DC Jesse Minter and his son and special teams coach Jay Harbaugh likely to join his staff in LA, according to John U. Bacon. Pretty plugged-in guy in Ann Arbor. Also one of the guys that said the contract was being extended at any moment in time. So maybe grain of salt there. Sharon Moore, the offensive coordinator, is the obvious front runner to take over for Harbaugh at Michigan. He coached during a suspension to end the season, got the W against Ohio State. Even though Michigan credited the W to Harbaugh, Moore was on the sidelines, made gutsy calls, called a hell of a game. And we talked before that last drive against Alabama to tie it, to get it to overtime. It's just like, it was a work of art, man. I was just like jealous. Like that's some great play calling.
Mm-hmm.
So he's the front runner to take over. Impressed with his play calling, but it's easy to call a game. It's a lot harder to do all the other things and call a game, right? And I think Ryan Day has kind of seen some of that. That's why he brought, Bill O'Brien in. There's a lot more to do, a lot more on your plate, man. When you're just putting together the game plan and adjustments and hyper focused on the offense, it's kind of easy to do that. Or not easy, but if you're talented enough, for like a guy like Ryan Day, it's easy to do. A guy like Sharon Moore, it's easier to do. All these other things make it a lot harder.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think, you said Day firsthand, right? So it's the exact same deal, right? Like it's also easier when you're really good at something. And in college football, you feel like offense. Like you want to be on that side of the ball probably. It's a much bigger challenge being the CEO. It seems like the harder challenge sometimes is reluctantly realizing that you've got to be the CEO, and therefore you may need to give up a little bit of what you're actually the most gifted at. But if it's Sharon, we'll have to see how he evolves. Maybe he'll look down south a little bit and follow that playbook. Yeah.
I mean, and a lot of these guys have egos. You don't get to this point in life without having egos, and you think you can still call all the plays and do all the work, and something you're really good at. And it's human nature, man. Like any one of us, I think, would be susceptible at as well.
Mm-hmm.
Going to watch Ben Herbert, their strength and conditioning coach, really has a knack of turning 3 stars into all Big Ten, All-American players. So if he goes with Harbaugh to LA, that would be fantastic news. If he stays, not so great news, but another name to keep an eye on is Herbert. The transfer portal, of course, opens for 30 days with him leaving. Coaches are getting hired quicker and quicker now. You see what Alabama did, bringing in Kalen DeBoer quickly when Nick Saban left. They still lost a lot of people. How quickly do you think, Moore or someone else is hired by the administration up there? You think it can turn around pretty quickly?
I think they will. I mean, it seems like everybody's saying that Moore is the leader in the clubhouse, but I've yet to really hear who else are they legitimately considering. Ward Manuel obviously had to have known for a while now. We're joking about how long this extension's been on his desk kind of thing, but the longer that goes on, the more you know the reality of, okay, what is our contingency? So I would have to believe Manuel was sniffing around a little bit. And at the end of the day, I've not heard anything, not that it's all public, obviously, but nothing that says, somebody other than Sharon Moore's the guy. I will say, like, as far as if they need to do it super quickly, I'm not necessarily convinced of that just because of the time frame we're in right now. I mean, the portal's basically closed, and I would think most kids at this point are going to stick around no matter who became the coach until after spring ball, because you got to wait for the window, there's a 30-day window that you have, but it's like where exactly you're going to go right at this moment, knowing school's already started and that kind of thing. So I think that there could be some movement there, but I don't think that's why they'll be so quick to get more. I think it's just they've probably done a lot of due diligence and they probably think he's their guy.
Yeah. I mean, that's who I'd hire if it was up to me. Academic timing is tricky. You touched on, classes have started everywhere, but these days I almost feel like schools will find ways to do that if they need to. So I don't know. It's new territory for all of us. We'll see what shakes out. I mean, remember all the old rules, you'd have a job posted for 10 days by state law and this. I mean, Ohio State hasn't done that forever. So there's like a different set of rules now. So I think
that's totally fair.
I tend to think they might figure that out. Looking at that roster, man, Kenneth Grant, the defensive lineman, Mason Graham, another defensive lineman, Will Johnson, the cornerback, Donovan Edwards, the running back. They got a new quarterback, Jaden Davis, coming in, who's highly touted. Defensive back, Rod Moore. Some guys out there that, let's be real, Ohio State's not going to get any of them. They would never. I mean, Boren was like such a unique case of a guy going from Michigan to Ohio State. It's can't see it happening again. But if someone else, if Alabama or Georgia or USC or Texas can pick off some of those players, great. I encourage them to do so.
Yeah, absolutely encourage them to do so. To your point, I don't think Ohio State would be able to get any of those guys if they were even interested. But I also think that, again, based on the timing, and if it is more and it's an in-house guy, that in and of itself should create less disruption, right? Where you would think at least guys might be more likely, well, let me at least stick around for football or spring ball and see how this shakes out. And then potentially, there could be, a chance, right? Because that 30-day rule wouldn't matter at that point. Spring ball's open and, you'd have or spring ball's over and you'd have a chance to, potentially move on. So, yeah, I don't know that I, see any, mass exodus coming. I guess an asterisk on And that could be, what if the NCAA does? I don't think they're going to do anything super soon, but what if anything like that came down and there were some implications to the, the current team? Generally speaking, I think people feel like, one, timing is still unknown, but two, even if it did come out, NCAA is not necessarily looking to punish current players in a go forward situation. So you would think maybe that wouldn't have as much to do with it. But yeah, I wouldn't expect a mass exodus for a host of reasons, at least not initially. That's for sure.
Yeah, and if I'm Sharon Moore, I'm actually texting everyone on the team right now saying, I think I'm going to be the guy. Don't do anything. Don't do anything stupid. You want to play for me. So, hopefully he's doing something like that if you're a Michigan fan. Mm-hmm. Harbaugh leaves with a 3-5 record against Ohio State. And, that's kind of inflated, man. It could be 3-6 with the COVID year that he kind of bailed on. And they did give him the win. They're crediting him with the win when he was home watching the 2023 version of the game on television, which Sharon Moore coached for that victory in Ann Arbor. So, man, it could very easily be, 2-6 when on his way out. But okay, call it 3-5. Let him have that. Got to go all the way back to Gary Moeller, man. The last Michigan coach with a winning record against Ohio State. He was 3-1, had a tie in there. So last coached in 1994. That's the last Michigan coach with a winning record against Ohio State. Brady Hoke, of course, 1-3. Rich Rod, poor Rich Rod, went 0-3. I don't think they're going to turn to him for the replacement on this hire. Lloyd Carr, 6-7, good start, but kind of tailed off for him there. So that's a wild stat. I was kind of surprised to hear that.
Yeah, it's wild when you think about it. I mean, and it's mostly just because of the recency of, gosh, the last 3 years have been tough. But, typically the comeback for OSU fans is, hey, let's take a bigger sample size. And, that encapsulate, that sample size encapsulates that run of just nonsense, like you said, from Hoke and Rodriguez, in particular in the first little bit of Harbaugh. I mean, Carr 6-7, that's not awful in a rivalry where at that time the teams were, a little more evenly matched. So, yeah, it is wild to think about, though, that you got to go back that far to find, Gary Moeller is the guy with the winning record.
Yeah, and Ward Manuel, the AD, his long nightmare is over. It's a tricky one because you want him, you want to keep him because he's got things clicking. But at the same time, like, imagine having an employee like that just lies to you all the time, gets in trouble with like the organization that polices you, lies to an NCAA investigators, tells you it's a one-time deal, goes and looks for jobs the next 2 years. Like, be a pain in the ass, man. Honestly, having an employee like that. So, totally. But again, delivered.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, like you said, the nightmare's over of dealing with Harbaugh is obviously what you mean by that, but the nightmare of, hey, what kind of infractions do come down the pike, and what does that do to the program, and then just the immediacy of the fan base, right? Like I think some fans are just, it's like they want to blame Manuel for this. Like there's anything he could have done. Like this immunity thing would have necessarily been realistic and or been enough to keep Harbaugh in Ann Arbor. None of those things are givens, but a Harbaugh loyalist, man, he delivered a title, this, that, and the other. It's like it doesn't matter what the dude does, he can do no wrong, and it seems like Manuel's is a easy scapegoat for a lot of those folks.
For sure. November 30th, 2024 cannot get here soon enough. That's when the teams will meet in Ohio Stadium. If you're, how salty are you, first of all, not getting another crack at him, letting him leave on a three-game tear? Does that kind of chew you up? It makes me a little salty. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, short term, you want another crack at the dude, especially when you see what you think the roster makeup is, at least at this point in time, at Ohio State versus the roster makeup at Michigan. So, yeah, short term wise, you want it. On the other hand, I mean, we can say 3-5, we can say a whole bunch of stuff. The fact of the matter is Michigan over, the balance of the last 20, 30 years, whatever, the last couple have been some of the best Michigan programs that we've seen. So, it would be real to have confidence to say that, yeah, even if this was a little bit down year and whatever happened in CA, that he would be able to rebuild and rebound again, right, and bring that team to some pretty elite heights. So, in that standpoint, I'm pretty happy to move him on. But for the short term, yeah, hell yeah, obviously with what right now, you'd want another crack at the dude next fall. I know you're in a similar boat for next year, as you said it, but I mean, long term, if you're weighing the whole, are you salty that he's leaving?
I mean, I'm going to be honest. I want another crack, but it's anything to weaken that program is a good thing. And,
right.
And if we're being honest, he had it clicking. And so you have to assume that, I don't know, maybe the next guy comes in and elevates it even more, and then we'll regret all this. But you have to assume that he's not going to do that. And that's kind of where I'm at. Another question for you. How salty is Ryan Day not getting a crack at the guy? I mean, level that born on third base line at him. I mean, what's going through his mind right now?
Yeah, it's obviously personal for Day. So I think I would imagine he would never say it, but his answer might be similar to what mine was on if I'm salty, right? Like think in the short term, it's like, hell yeah, Day wanted another crack at Harbaugh. Long term, I don't think he's overly worried about that program's got to do what that program's got to do. He's busy enough worrying about his program, but I don't think it's breaking his heart that Harbaugh took the Chargers job either, thinking about long term competitiveness and just, of this rivalry. But yeah, 2024, he wanted a shot at Harbaugh.
Michigan fans happy they got the natty? They sad? They relieved? What's going through their minds, you think?
Yeah, well, they're always going to have. You can put up with a lot of stuff after you got a natty, right? I mean, that's the ultimate scoreboard, right? It shuts down anything, and it's reaching the pinnacle of the sport. So it buys anybody associated with that program some time for sure. So are they sad that Harbaugh's gone? They absolutely are, right? But I think at the same token, they're also, hey, we got a natty. If we got to rebuild a little bit or whatever, hey, we'll climb back to the top of that mountain. But we got this good taste in our mouth, so we can put up with that for a while.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that, if it is Sharon Moore and Day does beat him this season, 24, they better get ready for the born on third base comment to come right back at him because the Ohio State fans have that holstered, man. That's ready to rock. Other big news a few days ago, man, Sunday, the number one quarterback from the 2024 class, Julian Sayin, announced his transfer to Ohio State, was an early enrollee at Alabama, was there for all of about a week, and heading up here, told ESPN, quote, he's incredibly excited to join the team here at Ohio State. I held this program in high regard throughout my entire recruiting process, and I'm looking forward to learning from some of the most talented players and coaches in college football and contributing to our team's success. And, watch his tape, man. He's amazing. He can flick the ball. He's got a quick release. He can run a little bit. He's really smart. I mean, look at that statement alone. The guy's super smart. Yeah, just the number one quarterback in the class, number 5 overall prospect, Elite 11 MVP. Get this, man. You'll love this. The last 2 Elite 11 MVPs to go to Ohio State, Justin Fields, CJ Stroud. That's some good company.
I do love that. Yeah, I love to hear that. If this guy's in that stratosphere, sign me up.
Gatorade California Football Player of the Year, 6'1", 195 from Carlsbad High, right down the road from San Diego. 4 years there, he was about a 71% passer for about 8,000 yards, 86 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Super smart, man. We heard the quote earlier. He's got an older brother, Aiden, that plays quarterback for Penn. He's in the Wharton program there. That's some brains to get there. Older sister played soccer for the University of Chicago, so brains are in the family. Well-grounded, man. Like every quote he has, he's just like so measured, so smart. Comes across like, he's very mature for his age, certainly way more mature than I was at his age.
Yeah, well, and obviously he didn't just pop on the radar, right? I mean, this was a guy after Raiola had, decommitted from OSU. Even before that, they were sniffing around. But when that happened, I think they offered Sayin in January of 2023 after Raiola had decommitted. And then I think Aaron Nolan, was like April of 2023. I think he actually committed because when Sayin was offered by Ohio State, he was already committed to Alabama. They were just trying to see if they could flip. They didn't think that was, going to happen. So that, they put the full court press on Nolan and got him in the class. So they obviously Day was always very much interested. And I think most people will tell you that follow this stuff closer than you and I do that that Sayin is definitely the better prospect. Nolan's a legit talent, obviously, but I think, it's almost unanimous that Sayin is the, considered at this point, and they're not always right, but considered to be the, overwhelmingly the better prospect.
Yeah, and you mentioned Raiola and Nolan. And fun fact, man, 4 5-star quarterbacks in this 2024 cycle. 2 are on OSU's campus, Sayin and Nolan. And Raiola, a third one, was once committed to Ohio State. So Ryan Day still getting very good quarterbacks. Going to be interesting to see what, how Bill O'Brien works with these guys too. The new hires, OC and quarterbacks coach. O'Brien obviously has a rep as a quarterback developer. Was involved when he was still at Alabama in the early part of Julian Sayin's recruitment. So they know each other, some familiarity there. And, good hands with Ryan Day and Bill O'Brien at Ohio State, regardless of who the quarterback is.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
But crowded room, man. Got Will Howard, Kansas State in for 1 season. Class of 2020, he's got 1 year left. Devin Brown, class of 2022, injured in the Cotton Bowl and has been injured before at Ohio State. Lincoln Kienholz, class of 23, came in the Cotton Bowl, was not quite ready to go, and Missouri kind of brought some heat at him and kind of exposed his maybe his underdevelopment at that point in time. And then you just mentioned Nolan, man, class of 24, like Sayin. A lot of people are like, that's a crowded room, man. And with Sayin coming, you have to think that, one, two of these guys may, in the next portal window in the spring, may decide to test some water somewhere else. Philip Dukes of 24/7 Sports spoke to Aaron Nolan right after Sayin's transfer announcement. Nolan told him, he said, I'm not going anywhere. So at least early on, he's saying the right things. And as you touched on, he's a heck of a talent, man. There's like two really, really good quarterbacks in the same class right here at Ohio State.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, it's interesting he wants to stick around, but I'm not stunned by that. I think that's that's how he's feeling in the moment, right? We'll see later. It could emerge from spring that, Nolan actually looks like he's ahead of Sayin right now. Who knows, right? You don't know yet. So I would think you don't get to be a 5-star by not being competitive. So I could see at least at minimum seeing it through the spring window, right? And then kind of weigh in your options from there. Maybe you think it's close enough, you go through the whole season. Because the fact of the matter is, I mean, a lot of these guys, if Howard does survive as a starter all year, if that works out that way, he's not going to be here next year. So you are going to need a guy. So I think, it would be smart for Nolan and, Sayin both, obviously, to just keep an eye on that litmus test, see where we're at in the pecking order now, knowing that, next year that job truly is, going to be up for grabs kind of thing. So, glad to hear these sticking around for sure, because he could absolutely emerge to be the best of all those guys. It's, competition's a good thing, but I also would not begrudge him if tomorrow he said, hey, I'm going somewhere else, because these guys, they want to play, and there's probably a scenario where he might be, where there's a lesser chance that he would be blocked. So I could totally respect that.
Yeah, for sure. Sayin is the third Alabama player to transfer to Ohio State since Nick Saban departed. Thank you, Nick, once again. Joining safety Caleb Downs, recently named a preseason All-American by ESPN, and center Seth McLaughlin, sixth overall transfer for the Bucs here in the winter window. Joining Ole Miss running back Quinshon Judkins and an Ohio tight end Will Kamara. And Judkins, obviously, we talked about him many times. All SEC, led the league in rushing. Like our cup overfloweth, man. I heard some Buckeye fans describe Michigan winning the national championship as like the program's Sputnik moment. And if you think back to like Sputnik, man, like what happened there, the Soviets put a satellite in space, and it kind of caught America off guard. And they're like, holy crap, we better get going. We need to devote some resources to space exploration, to rocket technology, to some of this other stuff. And, within, less than a decade, we had a man on the moon. So I'm all here for it, man. If this is the Sputnik moment, if Michigan winning a natty is that moment, then let's do it, because it sure lit some fire. And you've seen recently some NIL fire too. I mean, Ohio State's got a lot of really, really good players, a lot of really good retention. Some questions on the quarterback situation. First up, is there any chance Will Howard is not Ohio State's quarterback to start the season?
I mean, there's always a chance, but I would feel pretty comfortable putting money down to say when Ohio State goes out, runs out of the tunnel for its first game, that Will Howard would be the starter.
I'm with you there. I think I'm with you. What about any chance that he loses that job as the season progresses?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think there's a chance. Again, I think,
what is that chance though? Is that like 10%? Is that 5%?
I think it's 50? Definitely less than 50. 25, 33. I don't know, something like that. It also just comes down to what is it that you're ultimately going to need from that position, right? Like you want to be good at that position. Don't get me wrong. You're going to play the best guy, but it's not like, they're necessarily going to have to put, whoever's the quarterback in harm's way a bunch. You hope, right? As long as the offensive line, pans out, whether it's with the existing roster or with adding some guys, you're expecting one of the best defenses, potentially in Ohio State history. You talked about the running back situation. Some receivers might be young, but you feel like there's, a boatload of talent there. So it might be one of those situations where you just need to make sure the quarterback doesn't screw it up in most of the games kind of thing. So, and I think Howard's ceiling is better than don't screw it up. Don't get me wrong, but played a lot of football. So I would think that, unless, Sayin or Nolan, it would be one of those two. If it's not Howard, I don't think it would be Brown. I definitely don't think it would be Keenholz, right? So if it's not going to be Howard, to me it feels like, okay, well, that means it's a true freshman. That's saying a lot. That's a big bet when you have all this talent around that quarterback, right? So I would say there's probably a pretty slim chance that he loses his job during the season. You think differently?
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, one of the freshmen, or I guess Lincoln or anyone, maybe Devin, would have to just completely blow people away. And if they do that, through spring and through August, and you're in a situation like, we did bring in Will, But man, we got this roster. This is the year. This guy is killing, and he gives us our best chance to win it all. Maybe you do make that. It's risky. I mean, it's super risky. Saban did it when he brought in Tua, right, and replaced Jalen Hurts, and that was like super risky, but it paid off for him. So there's some precedent, but man, you better stick that landing if you make that move.
Yeah, I think Day would do it if he felt like he had to, just like he gets rid of coaches when he feels like he has to. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if I think it, there's good reason to think it will come to that. To me, if Ohio State's going to struggle or, do worse than what people are thinking next year, it's going to be because the offensive line doesn't get it done, not because the quarterback's throwing 15 interceptions. I just don't see that.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Definitely want to keep an eye on that quarterback room, though. Expect something to happen here, probably in the spring with at least one of the guys. I can't imagine like all of them rolling in through August. It would be too much of a stretch for that to happen, in my opinion. Some good news, man. Harbaugh, we're destabilizing Michigan. We got the number one quarterback in the class of 24 transferring to Ohio State. Got to talk about some bad news, and of course, it means Chris Holtmann on the show. And we do have that whole, one of our first episodes, we established, what was the 600 rule, that if he ever falls below 600 overall, we're just not going to talk about the basketball program. And, to their credit, they're still above 600, 684 right now. But, man, lost by 14 to Nebraska Tuesday night. What went wrong, man?
Oh, yeah. A lot went wrong. I think the biggest thing was they had no ability to defend the three. Nebraska hit 14 threes, I think. And the crazy thing was that big man hitting 6 of them, and they really didn't do anything to try to, differently over the course of the game to keep him from doing that. Guy, pours in a career high 34, just doing, kind of same old. So that was pretty crazy. But in typical fashion for this team in January, it was, at some point they've got a lead. They're up 22-13 in the first half, and then boom, give up a 30-13 run to close the half, and we're never really in it after that, right? So, it was pretty embarrassing. I think Holtmann, said as much, used the word soft like 3 times in a very, very short post game talking about his squad, and took the blame. He said, "Hey, that's on me." But here we are. It's another January. Ohio State's 1-4. Drops them to 26-29 in January under Holtmann. And if you take away that first year when supposedly the cupboard was bare and they went 8-1 in January and had their best season that they've had under Holtmann, he's 18-28 in January. If you take out that first year where his best players were Thad's guys, because it was KBD and it was Tate and it was Caleb Wesson. So it's a bit of a dumpster fire right now, and the next 3 games don't necessarily look that much more promising.
They don't at all, man. And you heard him use the word soft a few times to describe the guys playing, and he's got to be feeling massive pressure. There's a new guy, Ross Bjork, coming to town that, Holtmann's not his guy. Like if he, doesn't turn it around quickly, make a decent run in the tournament, he's got to be worried about his job. I mean, good chance that unless he turns it around, Bjork makes a move like this summer? I mean, do you see that?
I think there's a good chance, yeah. I mean, you're in year 7 of this. His team is, if he's going to be fired, it'd be because they miss a tournament again. So in year 7, you didn't make the tournament the last 2 years, and it would follow along. I mean, his career trajectory is he's gone, to different places and he's won some games, but he's never won a regular season conference title. He's never won a postseason conference title. And his one Sweet 16, there were 2 upsets in front of him. Those things happen, and that's fine, but he definitely beat way lower seeds. Just here you've not seen what needs to happen. And, in year 7, nobody wants to hear young team. Like, no one wants to hear that stuff. You build the roster. You can say that in year 2 or 3 if you've got to tear everything down, but year 7, nobody's trying to hear that anymore. So I think that also there's talent on this team as well. Like, I do not think this team is void of talent. They're just not putting it together. Definitely some shooting woes and things like that. But gosh, I mean, it's his roster. It's his players. It's his problem. This is unacceptable. I would hope that they, it's amazing the buyout is as bad as it is because Gene gave him an extension that understand the why, but was, risky, and it's kind of coming back to bite him now. But if Ohio State is serious about basketball and Ohio State doesn't make the tournament again, I don't think it matters what the buyout is. You need to show the fan base that you're serious about men's basketball, or else you're going to see less and less people showing up to watch this, mid-major looking program.
Any faith that he will be able to turn around and save the job?
I mean, it won't stun me, but right now, no. I mean, the past history says is that, we're in the midst of one of those typical tailspins where even if they do fight back, they're going to get in the tournament with a shitty seed. And it means by the second game, they're going to play someone that's favored to beat them, and they're going to lose to that team. And it's, maybe you did make the tournament, but you again didn't make the second weekend. To me, that feels like the ceiling at this point, right? And that feels like a stretch of a ceiling. yeah, I think we might finally be getting near of, hey, it's time to make a move. Fans feel that way, obviously, but for administration to feel that way is something different. So yeah, I mean, he's going to have to turn it around very, very quickly. And that's going to be difficult to do. And 2 of the next 3 games are on the road at Northwestern. You come home to play an Illinois team that is legit, like top 12 in the country good. And then you go on the road to play Iowa. Doesn't sound very good. Those aren't great teams to play on the road, but when you haven't won on the road in, a year and a month or whatever the hell it is now, there's little faith to say, oh yeah, they could win both those road games.
Yeah, and more importantly, than maybe losing his job, lose a few more, and we're not going to talk about him. So they're going to fall into the 600 line and cancel right. The show. So I don't know, Chris. It's up to you, Chris Holtmann. If you want to get it done, you want us to keep talking about you, keep pumping the program. You're going to have to get some road wins. We're going to have to win some Big Ten games. We're going to have to turn this around because not looking good at all. I mean, I got random friends of mine just text me like, I can't even watch this, and I'm like, well, we have to for our job, but lucky you, right?
I was going to say that's actually the worst thing. An angry fan base is one thing. An apathetic fan base is another, right? Mm-hmm. So they're dangerously getting into that territory. You see a lot more of that stuff where people aren't even watching the game. And I'm going to watch the games no matter what. And honestly, I hope he wins every game the rest of the season. But if we're being real here, there's no evidence to say that you should expect some grand turnaround. At some point, you are who you are, and your record is what you are. And this is not a small sample size.
Yeah, for sure. Let's end this on a higher note, though. We're not going to end the show on, the men's basketball woes. Let's talk about the women, man, because what a game over the weekend. Number 18 Ohio State knocked off number 2 Iowa and Caitlin Clark 100-92 in overtime, ending the Hawkeyes' 15-game winning streak. Cotie McMahon went off, man, at 33 points, 12 rebounds. Caitlin Clark did drop 45. I mean, she's really, really good. And those are some things that she does on the court, but all for a loss. Of course, after the game, all anybody wanted to talk about was the collision with the OSU fan that was running onto the court, stormed the court, running onto the court, holding their iPhone up, like streaming themselves. Were they filming a video stream? I don't know. I'm old.
I don't know if it was the pile or filming themselves running toward the pile, but yeah.
I think it was on themselves. I think it was back on them. I think they were on Twitch or something. Who knows what's happening, right? They're running out there, collided with Caitlin. Caitlin, gives a nice collision, falls to the ground. Gene Smith apologizes to her. The Big Ten had to issue a statement saying, Ohio State, don't let that happen again. Caitlin did say she was okay in the post game. And then, we had 2 days of fans arguing over whether it was a flop or not, which is, Iowa fans were salty as hell. Buckeye fans were like, it's a flop. What do you think? Flop or not? No flop? Have you seen it was the Zapruder cuts, like the slow-mos and all those? Have you seen all those floating around?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'd hate to play it down the middle, but I think it was a little bit of both, right? Like, I think she was... First of all, I would say players should have the ability to get off the floor safely. I don't think that's too much to ask, right? Like it's just not. Right. But I also think in that situation, especially as an athlete, you gotta have your head on a swivel a little bit. I don't know if she was looking down or whatever. I think it definitely surprised her. I don't think she sought out that contact. I've seen some of that. I don't think that was the case, but I do think maybe it was a little more glancing than than it seemed like initially. But I think she was stunned. I think it should not have happened. But I'm also like, how outraged are we going to get on this? She's okay. It shouldn't have happened, but it's not the end of the world here.
Yeah. And the worst part, I think it was a flop a little bit, but it's so hard to say that just in case she was injured or, maybe it wasn't a flop. You don't want to be on the record saying that, but it looked like a little bit of an exaggeration.
I think maybe
she's a basketball player. she draws fouls.
The arms went out. Yeah.
She knows how to do those things. But the worst part was the dumb fan just kind of looked over his shoulder and saw what happened and hid in the crowd. It was like, come on, man, have some integrity. Go over and apologize.
What you did at that point, right? Like, oh, hell, I need to get...
Is that you? Would you be sidestepping and getting off the court? I don't know. It's a tough spot. In theory, you should go over and apologize. Say, are you okay? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, obviously. Dumb, but
this fan was like, nope, I'm going to go hide this.
It might have got pushed away. An Ohio State player tried to help her up, and an usher or somebody kind of push that player away. So, yeah, but obviously, you accidentally do something like that, especially if you're a Midwesterner. It should be like, ope, and then you turn around and you go back there.
Yeah,
sorry, I was just trying to squeeze past you,
Just one of those deals. Squeeze through while I twitch.
Let me just squeeze right past you.
Yeah, largest home crowd ever for a women's basketball game in Ohio State. 18,660 fans. That is awesome. Marvin Harrison in the crowd was honored. Did you see his sweater and pants, man? I don't know if I can pull that. I don't think I can pull that look off, man. I don't think I can
drip for days. No, I can tell you right now, you look like Bozo the Clown in that. I would too, but yeah, no, he was Drip City, USA, man.
You ever notice how like the more famous you are, the more wild outfits you can pull off? Like regular dudes can't pull off any rock star stuff. I couldn't wear leather pants. I couldn't wear what Marvin was wearing. But if you're Keith Richards, man, you can wear leather pants and a leather vest and look fine, right? Like, like
Russell Westbrook, some of those NBA dudes walking in the tunnel into the game, just looking like, what you can only wear that once because everybody's going to know you wore the last time a week ago or whatever.
Or Cam Newton's hats. Remember those?
Oh my gosh, that dude.
Like, no way I could pull that off.
Dresses like Aunt B.
Game was the most watched women's basketball game in the regular season since 2010, man. That's nuts. Average of 1.94 million viewers for the game. Peaked around 3.9 million as the game was heading to overtime. And again, what an amazing finish, and hats off to the team. And for getting that W, man. Huge. They jumped from 18 to 12 in the poll, and got some momentum, man. They're a good team, too. It wasn't like
they
bad team upset Iowa, right?
Yeah, we're you and I, we've been in on McGuff. We love McGuff, and JC's great. I love that whole story, with their sister and all that. It's just team that team is likable, so likable. And Cotie is just a beast, man. What a showing. Impressive.
And that brings up this question: what does it say right now that the women can pack the shot and the men can? I know that women's basketball and volleyball and sports are having kind of a moment lately, man. Ratings are pretty good for all of them, but not a good look, man. Not a good look at all for Chris Holtmann.
Yeah, no, definitely not a good look for Holtmann. It was awesome for that, but I mean that was obviously the Caitlin Clark effect. If you I just looked at the last 6 women's home games. I think they average about $6,000, 6,500, something like that for home games. Holtmann, meanwhile, is averaging 11, so give or take. Just look back at the last 6 games, something like that. But there's sometimes I wonder if those attendance numbers too. It looks like there's a lot of people disguised as empty seats when they show the crowd. Then they say there were 12,000 people there, but. It's pretty cavernous at a men's game when you're expecting, in their heyday, obviously a lot bigger crowd. Arena sucks and that whole bit, but 10, 11,000 for playing Wisconsin on a weeknight, starting at 8:00 or whatever. 11,000 is unacceptable. But man, back to the women though. We said we were going to talk about that. It's just awesome to see, and more people should go. I mean, it's a great atmosphere there. It's fun, and I like the pace of the game. And man, what a win! What a win for the Buckeyes against Iowa. Yeah, absolutely. Congrats to Coach McGuff and the team. And we're going to end it on that, man. We're not going to, that's 3 good things in the show and one kind of bad thing. And we're going to take the majority and go with the 3. And congrats again to the team. And thanks so much for watching us. Be sure to catch us next week.